Ladies and gentlemen, you could look at the article below in the New York Times. You could look at the article that talks about in the description section below, right next to the New York Times, underneath the New York Times article, how several Democrats are already very serious about the $1 trillion coin. In their minds, in their warped, delusional brains, they think that it is a moral imperative. They are morally superior. They're always morally superior in their minds, but it is a moral imperative to teach the Republican Party a lesson, because they have no right. They are going to send the country, the Republicans, not the Democrats, with a spending bill that Joe Manchin and Sinema oppose. Not the Democrats, who never talked about infrastructure before last year. They were talking about Medicare for all, Green New Deal resolution, ending the filibuster, packing the courts. I don't remember anyone on the left, I was a lifelong Democrat, talking about infrastructure. Okay, which is one of the reasons why it's so difficult to get passed, even though they have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It's not something that they woke up thinking about years back, saying, God, we need to rebuild roads and infrastructures and ensure that buildings across the country are green and lower the carbon emissions of this or that. They never really woke up thinking about that. They never woke up thinking that mashed potato brains would be a good president. Nobody ever said in Democratic circles in D.C. or anywhere else, gee, you know who would be an amazing president after President Obama? Biden. He would be so fantastic. They never thought that. So they never really cared about the infrastructure bill. They never thought that mashed potato brains would make an amazing president. And we see he's literally, the man is the worst president in recent memory. Trump is a million times better for a number of reasons. But hit subscribe to this channel right now. They're serious about the $1 trillion coin. They will mint a $1 trillion coin if they don't get the debt, if they aren't able to resolve the debt ceiling crisis. So if they eventually can't fund the $3.5 trillion or the likely more than that they're going to need to fund their budget, and they prolong the debt ceiling crisis to later in October. But if they later in October still can't reach a consensus with Republicans, then they'll just simply mint a $1 trillion coin. And Paul Krugman, who is a Nobel Prize winning economist, thinks that it wouldn't even be an issue. It wouldn't even increase inflation. This is an article he wrote in 2013, Coins Against Crazies. So he's saying Republicans are the crazy ones. You see, because if they don't accept, so if everybody from Chris Hayes to Paul Krugman, if Republicans don't accept endless spending by Democrats, then they're the ones who are out of their minds. It's not Democrats who, God forbid, heaven forbid, do the impossible and spend less. This is like the impossibility. And then AOC says, well, you have money for the defense budget. Yeah, every defense budget under President Obama increased every year of his presidency. Same with Bill Clinton. And we're going to see that with Biden. Democrats talk about cutting defense. They don't cut defense. The defense budget always increases every single year, every single year. But hit subscribe to this channel, to my super chat. I can't do this without you, ladies and gentlemen. So to my super chat, thank you so very, very much. Skull Venom, everyone open up a savings account. I agree with you 100%. Skull Venom, thank you. Skull Venom 7089. Open up a savings account absolutely, we're going to have a stock market crash. It's going to be because Democrats tanked the economy, gleefully prevented people from working for something that did not affect the average age of the labor force. The labor force of 161 million Americans, 160 plus million Americans, the average age is 42, 43 years old. Go look up the government statistics on how often healthy 42, 43, 44, 45-year-olds survive you know what. Okay? The issue, the word survival is a very bad word for Democrats. They love other words, but survival is not something that is within their lexicon. But Skullvenom 789, thank you so very, very much. Thank you, Skullvenom. I agree with you. Open up a savings account, save money for a rainy day. This stock market is overinflated. We'll get to that in a second. Greatest amount of margin debt in the history of the country. Greatest margin debt as a percentage of GDP ever, surpassing 2008 and 2000. We have runaway inflation, and Mr. Krugman years back wrote this, but the paywall won't allow me to read his latest article again. But the latest article is the same type of thing. Finally, just consider the vileness of the GOP threat. The way they speak, it's always this ideological, apoplectic, children of the corn, like cult. It's not like, you have to understand, the New York Times doesn't view, they don't, these journalists or these columnists don't view Republicans as a political party. They view Republicans as like destroying the country, and they're on a crusade to save the country. Meanwhile, they prevented people from working gleefully. They knew that there was a political motive. I mean, we all knew the political motive was get Trump out of office, but you can't shut down the entire United States economy and then expect to just expect that you won't have labor shortages and supply chain shortages and all of these consequences from the unthinkable. Trump should never have gone along in the beginning, but in May of last year, he said, we have to open up. We have to open up. JG! Thank you, JG. Thank you. Yes. This is an honor and a pleasure, JG. Thank you so very, very much. I hope all is well. I hope all is well. And JG, thank you. It is a true pleasure and an honor to have you as a member. Greatly appreciated, JG. Thank you. Job 8891 with companies like making. Maybe we'll need that $1 trillion quiz. Yeah, Job 8891. Thank you. They're serious about the $1 trillion coin. They don't think that the way they look at it is the following. They think that it's Republicans who are forcing us to experience this debt ceiling crisis. So in this game of chicken, where they're coming down the road and we're going up the road, they're the ones who control the House, the Senate, the presidency. Our system of government allows Republicans who are the minority in the Senate or in the House to say, you know what, or in the Senate at least, you know what, we don't like the spending. Joe Manchin doesn't either. Democrats don't either. And the issue is that it's not about like the reality of debt. We didn't have $4.5 trillion added in a year during President Obama's administration or any other administration. We added to the national debt over $4 trillion in less than a year. And it was we spent $5.5 trillion in fiscal stimulus and $3.3 trillion in monetary stimulus, where you had quantitative easing of $3.3 trillion of the Federal Reserve buying back government debt and mortgages, or buying government debt and mortgages, and inflation is now through the roof. We have inflation because 1 out of every $5 has been essentially created by the Federal Reserve. And we have stimulus checks and payments to the tune of $5.9 trillion. And the reason that we have all these problems with supply chain shortages and labor shortages and jobless claims increasing as we have labor shortages, Job 8891, thank you so very much. The reason we have all of this is because when you shut down the economy, like morally superior liberals everywhere said we needed to do, and the experts and the authorities, the wonderful experts who keep everyone safe all the time, when you shut down the economy, you open up this Pandora's box of problems and unintended consequences and unforeseen dilemmas and catastrophic economic repercussions. We had in January of last year, we had close to record low unemployment. We had wage increases and we had job growth that all surprised and stunned the analysts, better than expected. And what took place is that we added $4.5 trillion to the national debt, and we're running deficits that we've never run, and the stock market is at record highs in terms of margin, and there are debt bubbles everywhere, especially in China, where before the decoupling, which is basically, being less reliant on China to ensure that our economy runs, or less reliant on doing business or manufacturing goods in China and selling them in the U.S. Before we reduce our exposure to the Chinese economy, we are now going to face the repercussions of the debt crisis there, just like we will eventually face the repercussions of the debt crisis here. At a certain point, debt is going to harm all the constituents and all the people that AOC and Bernie Sanders and every left-leaning pundit claim to care about. Okay? The national debt is $28 trillion. $28 trillion. So you have to ask yourself. Let's see. National debt added in 2020. $4.2 trillion in 1 year. And we've added even more with Biden. Thank you, JG. Thank you. It's going to be it'll be raining coins. They'll be like, yeah, let it rain. $1 trillion coins. They will do this if they can't get Manchin on board. JG, thank you again. If they can't get Manchin on board, and if they can't get Sinema, or if they can't get McConnell. So if they get Manchin and McConnell still says no to the debt crisis because they've prolonged that, they're going to print a $1 trillion coin. And it's like, oh, if somebody stumbles upon this segment, they'll say, oh, well, you're just saying that because the DNC traumatized you by cheating Bernie Sanders and is claiming that it was a fair and neutral primary. It's like, well, that's true. They did, but and you became a supporter of President Trump because of it. Well, in part, actually. But that's not the reason. Trump was a great president. If you judge him if you judge him using the standards you judge other presidents. He's a great president. We had an amazing economy. We had foreign policy that was infinitely better than mashed potato brains. It was Trump who reversed U.S. foreign policy. This is a fact. It was not Biden. Biden did not want to reverse anything. They've convinced themselves, these people can revisionist historians, even for like 6 months or 7 months prior to their diluted analysis. So they're saying, well, you know, it was Biden's decision to leave. It's like, no. They never wanted to leave Afghanistan. The Lincoln Project and Bernie Sanders vote for the same political party. Okay? AOC and Bernie Sanders have very little influence in the Democratic Party. They're used as tools to funnel votes from the far left back into the Democratic Party. And you can look at every single one of their, every example of Democratic Party ideology, from gun control to the $1 trillion coin to immigration, it doesn't work. You can look at the greatest increases in violent crime. They're in Democratic-run cities. On the average Memorial Day or July 4th, in Democratic-run cities, you have unspeakable crimes. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 people sometimes in one weekend, either losing their life or almost losing their life. And these are in places with the strictest Second Amendment regulations. The strictest, and it doesn't work. The real life, they look at statistics. Well, you know, red states have the most. No, you're confusing the data, or you're ignoring, unfortunately, people who end their lives and other issues. In terms of runaway crime, the statistics within Democratic-run cities there's no comparison, and it proves that you can legislate and you can ban things, you can make laws that only law-abiding citizens will abide by, but when it comes to criminals who want to engage in crimes, they're going to do so. You'd be better off arming good citizens to protect themselves and their families. But again, the perfect democratic world would be if only law enforcement had access to firearms, while at the same time they vilify and demonize law enforcement. So that's the democratic world in a nutshell. But they don't think that inflation is an issue. Okay, because it's been so long since the 70s that inflation's been an issue. They don't think it's an issue. So what they'll do, if they can't get Mitch McConnell, because they think this is like a holy crusade against evil Republicans, they think that because they have deemed $3.5 trillion as ordained by the universe. They don't believe in God, so just ordained by nature, okay, or science. Because they think that, see, Chris Hayes and Paul Krugman at MSNBC and then at the New York Times and everybody, they're like, the Republicans are going to bankrupt this country by not accepting our $3.5 trillion budget that even Manchin doesn't want. Do you see the mentality? The Republicans are going to bankrupt this country by not accepting anything we ask. What kind of narcissism? Like, think of the narcissism. Think of the ego you have to have. Think of the petulant type of mentality. You better accept everything that we demand, or you're the one who's going to bankrupt the country as we bankrupt the country with spending bills that are way too expensive. And I was on the left my whole life. I was the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post. The unofficial scribe of Sanders' most hardcore voters, according to the Washington Post. I never cared about debt. As a Democrat, you don't care about debt. You just think that government is like ordained by the universe to protect everybody through social safety nets, while at the same time ignoring the fact, and this is what Democrats do all the time, that instead of focusing on alleviating and addressing the issue of poverty through the creation of wealth, you have Democratic-run cities or regions of the country that have been poor in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2000s, 2010s, and in 2020. They don't care about alleviating poverty. They care about a social safety net. That actually keeps them in power politically. Alleviating the poverty probably wouldn't help them politically. So if you have an area when they say, oh, this group and that group and these people have suffered the most from our reaction, our apoplectic, hysterical, irrational reaction to a serious crisis that, by the way, is third, cancer and heart disease, and the lives of more Americans. Why Democrats downplayed cancer and heart disease, I have no clue. Because they always, whenever anyone disagrees with them or doesn't show their apoplectic fervor on something, they say, you're downplaying. So why did they downplay cancer and heart disease? Those diseases ended the lives of more Americans. You would think that we would ban McDonald's or smoking or drinking again. But if you don't do exactly what they say, you're not helping your neighbor. But you can go to McDonald's, you can be 150 pounds overweight, you can smoke, you can drink, you could never exercise, you can have high blood pressure, and everything's fine except if you don't do what they say. Your neighbor and everything else. You could have built thousands of hospitals where you would never run out of capacity with $10 trillion. You could have built thousands of hospitals with $10 trillion, or at least hundreds of hospitals. We put $10 trillion into pumping up the economy. We had a functioning economy. It was a functioning economy. Not just functioning, it was we had a prosperous country while Democrats were obsessing over Trump-Russia. Think of everything they've obsessed over. Clinton winning in a landslide, Trump working with Russia, Trump's tax returns. Nothing ever pans out for them. Their latest obsessions won't pan out either. When there's a reckoning, I keep telling everybody, and I know I'm going to lose 30 viewers, and that's fine. I love it so much. It makes me feel so good. You could be in your car, okay? You could be in your car driving with your significant other who is a morally superior liberal. And the way they look, like, is this the way the morally superior liberals look all the time? They truly believe that their ideas are, life-saving and ordained by the universe, and they're willing to do anything to implement these ideas. It doesn't matter. The road to you-know-where is paved with good intentions, and they don't care. But you could have, ladies and gentlemen, you could be driving with your morally superior liberal partner, and Halley's Comet could be redirected towards Earth, and on a collision course within 30 minutes, ICBMs from rival countries could be launched and about to detonate within 25 minutes. A whole bunch of people who, talk about, health issues, who live on the streets in Democratic-run states with the highest homelessness, with the greatest homeless problems, could jump on your car and use it as a bathroom, which they do in front of, supermarkets and stuff. But, Democrats don't care. It's all about everything else that needs to happen. But anyway, your check engine light can actually, as all of this is happening, the ICBMs, the Halley's Comet, meteors, people using your car as a bathroom in a Democratic-run city where homelessness is rampant, your check engine light can go on because you didn't take it to get an oil change, and the tire light could go on because you just popped your tire as all this is happening, and you could look and say, my God, I'm having a bad day. In fact, the worst day ever. And if you turn to your right, the morally superior liberal in your life would say, at least Trump isn't tweeting. At least Trump is not in office. At least we don't have Trump. This is their life. This is their psyche. This is a window into their soul, into their psyche. They despise Trump so much. So there is going to be a stock market crash, very likely. Hedge funds will probably cause it. Debt will probably cause it from the margin calls and other types of debt. Banks could go under. We will have a tremendous, horrendous crisis, and that's right ahead. And the writing's on the wall. They won't care. Do you understand? They will not care. They will not care. They don't care at all. Their lives are oppose Trump. Just make sure he's no longer in government. Everything else is relative to that. So dinosaurs could be like, it could be like Jurassic Park, or like, it could be like like these lizard aliens could come down and take over the planet. They wouldn't care. They'd be like, oh, no problem. That's fine. They don't their minds and their souls and their spirits have been crushed by the Orange Menace. This is why I say he shouldn't get on Twitter again. He shouldn't get on Twitter because he galvanizes and unifies Democrats. Democrats are like herding or corralling, thousands of cats running around like, aimlessly. Like it's like impossible to they're not unified at all because they don't even believe in their own warped ideology on anything. That's why they can't even pass a budget. This man was the most popular candidate of all time, and I absolutely believe that. H.A. Goodman absolutely believes this. Yes, mashed potato was the most popular candidate of all time. You would think that he would have some legislative mandate in terms of a budget. Gee, isn't that bizarre how even Democrats can't get on board? And again, Moody's, the financial analysis firm, the Wharton School of Business, Goldman Sachs, they all said that the infrastructure bill will either decrease GDP or not touch GDP, meaning that it's almost certainly going to lose money for the country. Most of the U.S. labor force hasn't even seen a shovel. We don't even know what a shovel is in our country, except for a small group of people in the country that, labor in the sun and build things. Okay? Most Americans haven't picked up a shovel in years. Okay? Most Americans have not picked up a shovel in years, if ever. They're probably the majority of young people in the country have never even picked up a shovel. So when they say shovel ready, It's not going to be for the majority of the country, and we have jobless claims going up. Elliot, hello. So, you have a situation where we are heading towards a catastrophe, an absolute catastrophe. It's right there, and I don't usually speak this way. I have never, since I started the channel really in 2016, I have never spoken in this manner. I never say, oh, this is doom and gloom, and, the sky is falling, and, I never, that's not my style, but I started the Stock Market Crash channel. Oh, by the way, subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel. If you watch the latest Stock Market Crash channel, in the region where Evergrande is located in China, there's an $8.2 trillion debt bubble they have. Okay, China is facing a tremendous amount of debt. Here you go. That's the shrapnels. Hello. That's the segment. So I'll put the segment in the chat. Subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel. Thank you, shrapnels. Thank you. If you look, it's not my style usually to say the sky is falling and all that, okay? But if you look, ladies and gentlemen, we have $28 trillion in debt. National debt, okay? Just look at a bird's eye view. We have a $20 trillion GDP. The gross domestic product of our country is we have a GDP of $20 trillion, 22.72. Okay. I believe just recently the national debt surpassed GDP. Okay, the national debt surpasses GDP. Just recently, okay? U.S. national debt expected to approach $89 trillion by... This is a Forbes article. I might do a Stock Market Crash channel on that. And the alternative would be to cry. Okay? If you had a debate with a morally superior leftist, communist, socialist, whatever, and you say, look, the national debt has surpassed GDP, okay? That's going to make it difficult for the country to withstand stock market crashes, natural disasters, times when we have to, when we have to borrow money. Okay, we didn't have to borrow 4.5 trillion, $4.2 trillion last year. That was a choice. The reaction to, well, I'll read this. The reaction to you know what was a political reaction. It wasn't a Sweden didn't do what we did, and they had a much better outcome. So you can't say we had to do this. But here, this is May 3rd, 2021. Forbes, U.S. national debt expected to approach $89 trillion by 2029. How is that? Okay. The U.S. national debt is rising at a pace never seen in history in America. There's going to be a devastating stock market crash. Save your money. If you've made money in the stock market, I'm not telling you to sell your stocks. I'm not telling you to sell anything. What I am saying is just take profits and put it in a savings account. Build a nest egg in terms of savings or a rainy day fund, let's say. The U.S. national debt is rising at a pace never seen in the history of America, with the current debt exceeding $28 trillion, an increase of nearly $5 trillion in 14 short months. Washington is now debating an infrastructure price tag with close to $2 trillion, so $3.5 trillion. Even without this additional spending, the national debt will approach $89 trillion by 2029, according to U.S. Debt Clock. This puts the country at debt to GDP ratio at 277%, surpassing Japan's current 272% debt to GDP ratio. The good news is the U.S. economy grew by 6.4%. That's not good news. That's just because we opened up. And by the way, Japan still hasn't recovered from their 1989 stock market crash. I mean, they still haven't. They're still experiencing the effects of that. The bad news is that, I mean, in terms of the stock market, the economy is fine, but I'm talking about the valuations. The bad news is that after we return to normal, future economic growth will not be as robust, primarily due to burgeoning debt. Yes, America is losing and perhaps already has lost control of its public spending. We've already surpassed the reason we were immune to the repercussions of debt is because we had a GDP. Ian Moyer, thank you, Ian. My God, I can't thank you enough. That's so kind of you, Ian. Thank you so very much. Always, I just put down a shovel. I'm a framing subcontractor. I'm a framing subcontractor, and I was a laborer for over a year before I was given a set of nail bags, and then another year before I was given a nail gun. Always on the beat, looking for the next job. Nice, Ian. Thank you so very much. So you build things, and you create things. In our country, the financial and service tech sectors, I don't know how much they create, but you create things. Ian Moyer, thank you so very much. I just put down a shovel, framing subcontract. Nice. And I was a laborer for over a year before I was given a set of nail bags, and then another year before I was given a nail gun. Nice. Always on the best job. Nice. So you build things. Building things is important. It's important for the country. It's important for the world. We don't really in our country emphasize that, and that's why when there's only a small number of people like Ian who are going to pick up a shovel and build things. So when they say shovel ready, it's like nobody can explain on the left. No Democrat can explain exactly how an infrastructure bill is going to help the economy rebound immediately. By the way, the spending that is supposed to help foster economic growth doesn't even take place immediately. The corporate tax hikes, the 21%, it goes from 21 to 28% in corporate tax. Okay, that is opposed by the Business Roundtable, the National Association of Manufacturers, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. What do you think these corporations, Ian, thank you again so very much. I can't thank you enough, Ian. You've done more than, my goodness, thank you so much, Ian. What do you think these corporations will do when, like, AOC and Bernie Sanders are like, we're going to teach Amazon a lesson? Like, no, you're not teaching Amazon any lessons. You're not teaching Amazon any lessons, AOC. You're not teaching them any lessons. First of all, Bernie Sanders and AOC and every left-leaning politician, their Amazon purchases is probably in the tens of thousands. If you look at, very likely, AOC has tens of thousands of dollars in Amazon purchases. Everyone, like a billionaire, whether it's Bezos or anyone else, is not going to worry about a socialist or democratic socialist politician. When I backed Bernie Sanders in 2016 and 2015, I did so because foreign policy was the most important issue, and I thought that he would bring home Americans. He was even against that when Trump was bringing home Americans. I didn't realize something as well, that the Lincoln Project, the former Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld people, vote alongside Bernie Sanders. The whole thing on the left is a racket. But I never focused on socialism or I didn't care about going after billionaires because the billionaires are going to make money no matter what. This is a psychological or propaganda ploy by Bernie and AOC. They're not intimidating the billionaires. They're not doing anything. In fact, if you impose regulations on any corporation, they'll get around it by either passing if you tax them, increase the corporate taxes, or impose these regulations, they will pass the tax on to the consumer, or they'll cut the hours of people so they don't get health insurance, or they'll do anything they can. Ian, thank you again. Thank you as always. They'll do anything they can to address the legislation by either harming the workers or the consumer. So the billionaires will get around any legislation. Antitrust laws are a little bit different, so that you can they care about that. But see, again, you never Elizabeth Warren a little bit was talking about this years back. The only way you get any, JG, yeah, nice. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to give $1 quadrillion, which is 1,000 trillion on the super chat, you'd have to go first, I believe, to Janet. So this is how it would work. You go to Janet Yellen. She mints, the Treasury mints the coin. And wouldn't it be amazing if they made a mistake and it was the Trump commemorative coin? Look at you. Let's look at the Trump commemorative coin right now. Trump commemorative coin. Let's see. Ian, have you seen the Trump commemorative coin? Yeah. Nice. Nice. This is hilarious. The whole thing is his hair. Nice. Could you imagine if they were printing $1 trillion coin and they were going to put mashed potato on it, but they accidentally put let's put it this way, they despise Trump so much they would rather actually the US default than utilize $1 trillion coin with Trump's face on it. If they printed $1 trillion coin and accidentally put the Trump commemorative coin on it, with Trump's face, they would say, you know what? Bring on the default. We're not depositing this Trump. The Trump ruined our $1 trillion coin like he ruins everything else. So no, we're not depositing it. That's what would happen. Exactly. Bank loans. I mean, the whole point of pumping so much money is to increase liquidity in the economy. Now, this is interest rates are low, but loans are harder to get. Exactly. Look at this. Exactly. And, I mean, you're seeing all of this. You're seeing all of this take place. Nothing makes sense. We pump $10 trillion into the economy, but bank loans are tougher to get. We have a labor shortage with jobless claims increasing. We have a supply chain shortage, but the economy is supposed to grow at 6%. Well, they say, well, that's why there's a supply chain shortage, genius. Well, there's a supply chain shortage because you prevented people from working for a year and then expected everything to be normal when you when you opened up the economy. So, I mean, it could be the catalyst. We don't know what the so in the stock market crash channel, I always say I don't know what the catalyst is going to be. It could be hedge funds going under. It could be debt from other countries that affects that highlights in some way the debt in our country. Exactly, John. We're gonna spend. Ian, thank you so very much as always. Ian, thank you. This is the fault. When it happens, it will be 90, almost 100% the fault of Democrats and Republicans who were never Trumpers, but mainly Democrats, because the Republicans who were never Trumpers, they don't really have a voice in politics. Have you heard Mitt Romney or Kinzinger or Cheney say anything other than disparaging comments about Trump? Maybe here and there Tom Cotton will, I don't know if Tom Cotton's a never Trumper, but he'll talk about like foreign policy. But like, when you decided to, and by the way, they say Yellen rejected the idea. It's not her decision to reject. If the administration says mint the coin, she'll mint the coin. If you prevent people from working for a year, this is unheard of. It was a completely irrational response to a serious crisis, and the crisis affected especially a certain demographic of the country that was not predominant in the labor force. That's a fact. You can go to government data. Look at the numbers. They keep on saying, look at the numbers. They never look at the numbers. They keep saying, look at the numbers. They never look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. 80% of the lives lost were 65 and older. Okay? According to the CDC. And actually, if you look at above the age of 50, it was 99.7, something like that in 2020 of the lives lost were above the age of 50. You can look up the data. It's right there. Nobody has looked up the data. It's right there. Unequivocal. The average age of the U.S. labor force is in the 40s, like 42, 43, 44. So you've shut down all of society, and then you expect the economy to come back, and what you've done is you've presented the world with this incentive for moral hazard, where you pumped money in, and then you have the greatest margin debt in the history of the United States of America. We have more margin debt in aggregate than 1929, as a percentage of GDP, it's higher than 2000 and 2008. This is why it could be way worse, and I think it's probably going to be way worse. I think it will be. My prediction is going to be even worse than 2008, and here's why. The average American in 2008 didn't just witness an economy that was prevented from functioning for a year. We didn't have supply chain shortages. We didn't have a labor shortage. We didn't have runaway inflation. We didn't have the greatest margin debt in the history of the country. We didn't have all of these issues we have. The consumer price index, the producer price index, the Baltic dry shipping index weren't at all-time highs. Or, highs not seen since 2008. In addition to the labor shortages, in addition to the supply chain shortages, in addition to inflation, in addition to the margin debt being the highest number of margin debt in the history of the country. So the average American is going to feel this more so than 08. And if you have to bail out banks, how do you bail out banks? They might actually print the coin. Jack, I agree with you. I mean, it's obviously going to be worse than 2008 because our GDP, our national debt has surpassed GDP. National debt has surpassed GDP. So, if that's what was keeping us, preventing us from experiencing the repercussions of the debt because our economy was so big. We had the biggest economy in the world, and we still have the biggest economy in the world. So, U.S. national debt hits 100% of GDP. Should the credit markets care? And it's like, markets don't care because rates are low and even lower in Europe. So what? The rates are only low because of political reasons, not because of economic reasons. That is causing the stock market to inflate to absurd levels. When it crashes, all those derivatives, that are private contracts between the hedge fund and the bank, all of those derivatives will cause $30 billion margin calls, just like are the Archegos collapse. So I don't know when it's going to happen, and I hope it doesn't happen, but that's why I've devoted an entire channel to it, the Stock Market Crash channel. I speak about it also on this channel all the time. It's going to be a really, really horrible market crash. A really, really horrible market crash. And, I mean, I don't know, like, it will be 100% Biden and the Democratic Party's fault for not even acknowledging. They are so clueless. They are so clueless. They don't even acknowledge that it's a possibility. Do you understand? They don't even acknowledge that it is a possibility. They don't think it's an issue. They don't even think it's an issue. Hi, Caroline. Hello. They don't even think it's an issue. That's how clueless they are. They're focused on everything but economic growth. Okay? The infrastructure bill is not about economic growth. That's obvious. It has nothing to do with alleviating. It has nothing to do with bringing people out of poverty, which is like the basis for the moral superiority that Democrats care about saving people who are impoverished. They don't care about bringing those people out of poverty. Bringing those people out of poverty would probably be a bad thing for the Democratic Party in terms of political interests, because then they could say, okay, well, you know what? I don't need Democrats. I could vote Republican. I could vote or I could not vote at all. I don't need the Democrats. This when Joe Biden said, well, if you don't, then you are, the political calculus is the following. Morally superior liberals want to feel that their giving a social safety net to impoverished people. That's it. Case then, period. End of sentence. That's it. They don't care about alleviating poverty or bringing impoverished people, bringing them out of poverty. They don't care about looking at areas of the country that they preside over, that they control politically. They don't care about preventing poverty or bringing people out of poverty and making them wealthier, bringing jobs to, or giving an incentive to businesses to move towards these move to these areas. That's what President Trump tried to do with these opportunity zones. And then you got the same old, oh, it's not working. It's Trump. It's Trump. It's horrible because it's Trump. It's horrible because it's Trump. That's it. That's what you got. It's horrible because it's Trump. And that's their thing. They don't. That's their thing. That's what they. That's what drives them. What drives them is the sense that they feel good about themselves and they feel morally superior, even if they're not. Even if they're not, at least they feel morally superior. So that's the good thing. Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to... Ian, thank you so very much. Everybody here, thank you. To my super chat, thank you. I am going to be back. I will try to be back by around 10:30. Be here tonight at around 10:30 p.m., ladies and gentlemen. Be here at 10:30 p.m. We'll probably do a segment on Hunter's emails. I was going to do one during this live stream, but I think I'll do one at around 10:30. So be here at 10:30 p.m., ladies and gentlemen. To my super chat, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, have a beautiful, beautiful evening. Have a wonderful evening. And if you're up, be here at around 10:30 or so Pacific. I will have a live stream up 10:30 or so Pacific. And I'll set up the live stream right now. Thanks, everybody. To my super chat, thank you. Ian, can't thank you enough. Everybody here, thank you so very, very much. Be here at 10:30 p.m. Pacific, people, and subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel. Thanks, everybody.